All right, let's talk about our favorite pink-haired punching bag, Yuji Itadori, a kid who has the physical stats of a Marvel superhero and the self-preservation instincts of a lemming with a death wish. We've all seen the typical shonen protagonist, the guy who wants to be the king of pirates or the wizard king or whatever administrative role is currently hiring. But Yuji is different because his primary goal is basically to die properly. Imagine being 15 and having "get a good funeral" at the top of your bucket list. That is where we start our journey into the absolute train wreck that is Yuji's psyche, specifically his brand of pathological altruism, which is just a fancy psychological way of saying he helps people until it literally kills him, and then he apologizes for the blood getting on their shoes. It all starts with his grandfather, a man who decided that his final words to a teenager should be a crushing moral obligation rather than, "I love you" or "the Wi-Fi password is under the router." By telling Yuji to die surrounded by people, he didn't just give him a life goal, he triggered a massive case of introjection. In psychology, introjection is when a person internalizes the beliefs or voices of others so deeply that they mistake them for their own desires. Yuji didn't choose to be a savior. He swallowed his grandpa's dying wish like it was a cursed finger, pun absolutely intended, and made it his entire personality. He's not out there saving people because he has a healthy sense of heroism. He's doing it because he's terrified of failing a dead man's request. This created an external locus of control, where Yuji's entire sense of self-worth is tied to things outside of himself. Specifically, how many people he can pull out of a burning building or a cursed spirit's stomach. If he isn't saving someone, he doesn't think he deserves to exist, which is a great way to live if you're looking to have a midlife crisis by age 17. Then we get to the moment he eats the finger. Most people, when faced with a mummified, rotting digit that radiates pure evil, would perhaps call the police or at least use a pair of tongs. But Yuji, he sees that as a snack-sized solution to a problem. This is the ultimate example of a self-sacrificial defense mechanism. He doesn't even hesitate. He's got this messiah complex brewing early on, the irrational belief that he's the only one who can carry the burden of Sukuna, regardless of the fact that it makes him a walking, talking nuclear warhead. He thinks he's being selfless, but from a psychological perspective, it's actually a form of grandiosity. He truly believes his life is a fair trade for the safety of others, which sounds noble until you realize he basically ends up being the vessel for the king of curses because he doesn't value his own life as much as a half-eaten sandwich. As the series progresses, Yuji's altruism starts to look less like a virtue and more like a full-blown mental health crisis. Enter the concept of cognitive dissonance. This is the mental discomfort you feel when you hold two conflicting beliefs at the same time. For Yuji, the conflict is "I must save everyone" versus "the monster inside me wants to use my hands to commit mass murder." When Sukuna takes a detour through Shibuya and levels several city blocks, Yuji doesn't just feel bad, his entire worldview implodes. He can't reconcile being a savior with being a mass murderer by proxy. Instead of realizing that he's a victim of a 1,000-year-old thing, he leans harder into his toxic altruism. He develops a cog mentality, which is a textbook case of dehumanization, specifically directed at himself. He stops seeing Yuji Itadori as a human being with feelings, rights, or a future. Instead, he sees himself as a tool, a part of a machine designed to kill curses. If a hammer breaks while driving a nail, you don't mourn the hammer, right? That's how Yuji starts viewing his own body and soul. This "I'm just a cog" philosophy is a shield against survivor guilt. By stripping away his humanity, he doesn't have to feel the crushing weight of the people he couldn't save. If he is just a tool, then his suffering doesn't matter. It's a dark, sarcastic twist on the hero's journey where the hero decides the best way to be a hero is to stop being a person. This is often linked to reaction formation, where a person hides their true painful emotions by over-exaggerating the opposite. Yuji puts on that shonen protagonist smile and keeps punching, even when his hands are falling apart. Because if he stops for 1 second to acknowledge his own trauma, the whole house of cards comes down. He's practicing emotional suppression on a level that would make a Victorian butler look expressive. He thinks that by ignoring his pain, he's being strong for others, but in reality, he's just building a pressure cooker that's eventually going to explode in a very messy, cursed energy-filled way.
正しいしかじゃねえよ甘えんな
Let's talk about his relationship with Mahito, because that's where the sarcasm really writes itself. Mahito is basically Yuji's dark reflection, a mirror showing him exactly how little his humanity matters in the grand scheme of sorcery. When Yuji tells Mahito, "I will kill you even if I have to change my name or my face," he's officially entered the realm of maladaptive self-abnegation. This is when you give up so much of yourself for a cause that there's literally nothing left. He's not even fighting for justice anymore. He's fighting out of a purely functional necessity. It's the most depressing version of doing your job ever put to paper. He's like an intern who's been told he won't get paid but still stays late to organize the filing cabinet while the building is on fire. And then there's the compulsion to repeat. In psychology, this is when a person keeps putting themselves in the same traumatic situations, hoping for a different outcome. Yuji keeps jumping into fights he can't win, taking hits that would kill a normal person, and offering his life up for trade over and over again. It's not just bravery, it's a glitch in his programming. He's addicted to the idea of his own sacrifice. He's the guy who brings a knife to a gunfight and then apologizes to the shooter for getting blood on the carpet. His altruism has become toxic because it leaves no room for the people who actually care about him, like Megumi or Nobara, to value him. By treating himself like garbage, he's inadvertently telling his friends that their affection for him is misplaced. It's a weirdly selfish way to be selfless. So, is Yuji Itadori a hero? Sure, in the same way that a fire extinguisher is a hero. But as a human being, he is a walking textbook of avoidant attachment to his own life. He's so focused on the proper death his grandfather mentioned that he's completely forgotten how to have a proper life. He's the only person in the world who could be told he's the spark of a new age of sorcery and respond with, "Cool, can I die now?" We love him because he's nice, but we should probably be worried because his niceness is actually a maladaptive coping mechanism for a world that has done nothing but kick him in the teeth since episode 1. In the end, Yuji is a cautionary tale about what happens when you take help others to a level that borders on a psychological disorder. He's the king of self-erasure, a boy who vanished into his own mission until only the cog was left. It's funny, in a dark, twisted way, that the series is called Jujutsu Kaisen, Sorcery Fight, when the real fight is just Yuji trying to convince himself he's allowed to eat breakfast without it being a grand sacrifice for the future of humanity. He needs a hug, a therapist, and maybe a hobby that doesn't involve swallowing body parts. But until then, he'll just keep being our favorite self-destructive, pathologically altruistic kid, proving that you can be the protagonist of your own show and still treat yourself like an extra who's only there to make the villain look cool. So, if you enjoyed watching me dismantle Yuji's mental health faster than Sukuna dismantles a city block, go ahead and hit that like button. It's the only way to prove you have a healthier mindset than our boy Itadori. Consider subscribing to the channel. Don't let Yuji be the only one making sacrifices today. And remember, if you find a mummified finger in a shed, maybe just call a priest instead of making it your afternoon snack. See ya.